in my opinion, fitting all the pieces together is the hardest part. Yeah, you learn about lists, dictionaries, functions, but again, you ask yourself, okay, so how do I use those in a real world application? You learn about backend, front end, APIs, databases, RESTful, whatever. The challenging part is understanding how these parts fit to make one full-fledged application. And so in this video, I will take you through sample full stack applications. Sorry, full stack application. I'll take you through the project structure, the backend, the front end, and how I get the APIs and how those APIs are consumed in the front end. I hope we'll have enough time to do all that. So the project is an HMIS. It's a project me and my colleagues are working on, and I think I wrote an article about my setup where I was using WSL, but GUI applications in Windows. But in this one, I'm using primarily Windows. So I have my project here. This is the root directory. If I do dir, you see I have the backend and the front end here. I'll explain the other files. So in most cases, I have three terminals here open. One is for front end. I think front end is running. Front end is a next application. I have already built it. So to run it, I just do npm start. And backend is a Django REST framework. Of course, I had to activate the virtual environment first, and then I'll just do python manage.py run server, and my backend is running here. So this is to do root directory tasks, like for example pushing to GitHub, and anything to do with backend, I'll do it here. Anything to do with front end, I'll do it here. Now so for the project, I have, let me minimize this. This is my structure. So I have the backend, the front end. These are directories, and then I have Docker Compose. I don't know if you know about containers, but there's an article. I'll link it somewhere. And then I have the README, and I have the git ignore file. Now inside backend, this contains my backend project. It's a Django based project, so I can say main or core functionalities about the project are divided into what you call apps. So what you see, these are apps, except for this one, which is the root, the core Django project. So for example, if we go into patients, apps, the main files here are the models, which of course defines my database fields. This is how Django defines database fields. One thing I love about Django is that there is no SQL queries. There's no writing SQL queries. It uses what you call ORM, object relational mapping, which basically means just by doing this, you can define your database fields. And then I have my views. Views are basically the interaction between the user and the database. Okay, that does not make sense right now, but you'll understand what that means later. Views basically go to the database and get you what you want. For example, here, as you can see, I'm getting the patient ID, basically that. If you look at another view, let me look at another one, like this one, for example. So this query is what now queries the database, and then it gets you all the patients. So that is for the view. And another important file is the serializer. So if you're creating RESTful APIs, you will need a serializer. What a serializer does, basically, it converts one data type to another. More importantly, it converts Django data, the data type that Django understands, to JSON, so that you can consume JSON in front end, and it does the opposite once data is coming. So yeah, so these are applications. That is the basic structure. Oh, I've forgotten one more thing. The other important thing is the URLs. This is now how you get your endpoints, and you'll see in a minute how this is happening. So that is for the backend. Now for the front end, it's a Next.js project. The SRC, or the source, is now where we do most of the work. So as if you go into source, you'll see we have components, pages, Redux. If we go into pages, this is the main page. As you can see here, I'm wrapping the root component inside a store. This is Redux stuff, and as you can see, I'm not the one who's handling the front end at the moment. And after wrapping inside a store, we are wrapping inside authentication, and then after that we drill down to the specific components. And now the components are divided into the pages are divided into what you will see in the user interface, and I'll be showing you in a minute. We have the billing, the AI assistant, we have the inventory, the laboratory, and all those. So that is for the front end and the back end. Now backend is what gives us our endpoints, and I'll just drag my browser down here. So for the backend, I'm using a tool called Swagger. Swagger, basically it documents your APIs, so it makes it easy to know which API endpoint does what. So for example, here if I come to So if I come to patients, where is B? If I come to patients, I can now see for patients appointments, I have 4 endpoints, 5 endpoints. So one is for get request, so it gets you a list of the, and as you can see here, it shows you the data that comes from the backend. And then you have the post request, is when you're creating a patient, when you're creating an appointment. This is the data that the endpoint accepts. Yeah, and you just go down to delete. Of course, we are deleting a single appointment. That is why you see this ID field here, because we are deleting one appointment. When you're doing patch, put, or we can even get one appointment, you pass in the ID of that appointment. Swagger does a very good job of documenting your APIs, as well as allowing you to interact with those endpoints. Like for example, I can do get requests from inside here, but I think I can just come to try and then execute. Yeah, it gives me an empty response because I think lab test profiles have not been created yet. So that is for the API endpoints. As you can see, I have so many tabs open. I think in one way or another they are all related to the project I'm working on. So here are my Figma templates. In as much as here are my Figma templates. Apart from working as the backend developer, I'm also the systems architect, and I also handle the UI designs, sharing with the front-end developers. So as you can see, for example, I was trying to create the logic for the inventory, so it flows this way. Anyway, that's complicated stuff for this video. And then of course, this is my Django admin interface. In production, the users will not need to access this because I've included that in the dashboard. You'll see that in a second. And then I have the sorry, there was a technical hitch. So I have the project repository open here, where I look at the issues and which ones to handle, which ones to answer. I'm also writing the wiki. If you would like to read more about the project, you could just go to Make Easy HMIS. It's a public repo, and you can see what we're building. I believe I've provided documentation to run the project. So for the, yeah, those are all the tabs I'm using. One other important tool I'm using is the MySQL Workbench. I'm using it to create the database schema and to understand how everything flows. I'm also using CorelDRAW to draw the, I don't know what to call this, but maybe the workflows or the what. I don't know which term you use. And of course, sometimes you might need to create some sample data to see how everything will fit in together. That's the systems architect. And sometimes you want to understand how the system will work as per one specific functionality. So here I was trying to understand how the LIS can work. Here I was trying to understand how the billing module can work. So that is for Corel. And of course, you need to get yourself a nice cup of coffee. Yeah, that's it for this one. If you want me to explain anything further, you can leave a comment down below and I'll explain in more details. Thank you.